It's just amazing that it's still standing.
We had to do something. There wasn't a lot of time to do it.
The church was in such dire straits. You see right in the interior of the building.
We saw how near to collapse this building was.
The challenge is trying to make it right, historically correct.
As we start to take things apart, we learn more about the story.
Hand painted.
Absolutely wonderful.
I'm thrilled to see that the community and others have gotten together to preserve our collective history.
Woo-hoo! There's many lessons to be learned from that little wooden church. Our people have always had this connection to their Creator. So they wanted a place of their own to worship. Cleared the trees from the land and put the church up. I'm Janie Cooper Wilson, and I'm a historian. My father's great-grandfather was born in Madagascar. My mother's people came from Angola. The Africans first set foot in Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. And there were 2 women out of these 19 slaves. 2 women. 1 died. I'm descended from the other.
Swing low, sweet chariot.
The church is a symbol of a very heroic and humanitarian project that took place right here in Oro a little less than 200 years ago.
When blacks after the War of 1812 were given grants of land on the same basis as white folks were, it was a first ever that we know about, not only in North America, but maybe the world.
They were free, and they felt free, and they felt liberated, and they weren't looking over their shoulders for bounty hunters. So there's this joy of freedom.
It took place before Confederation. It's a symbol of freedom. It touches on every African Canadian community in the province, and no doubt in Canada.
It was built in 1849 and had its optimum or zenith congregation numbers around 1865.
Everything that people did in life surrounded the church. The church had a dirt floor in the beginning with a pot-bellied stove. Everybody sat around, sang hymns, discussed the issues of the community, the problems, how to help incoming people that had nothing.
My great-great-great-great-grandfather, Noah Morris, deeded this land to the church so they would have a place to worship. And it gets me every time. Excuse me. Well, the significance of this photo is that the first time I saw it, and I saw how black my great-grandmother was, holy smokes. Because my grandmother never told us about our black history. We had no idea, never even crossed our mind that that would be part of our history.
I met Joy at a lecture I was doing in Toronto.
After she finished her talk, I went up to her and I said, "Oh, you remind me so much of my dad's cousin, Mickey." She says, "Mickey Smith?" I said, "Yes." "In Hamilton?" I said, "Yes."
Of course, she started throwing around a few names, and I said, "Oh, yeah, yeah, mm-hmm." And then I looked at her and said, "Hi, cuz." And she, really? You know.
Her great-great-grandmother, my great-great-grandfather were sister and brother, and they came from Virginia, made their way up here somehow, and started families. And here, over 160 years or something later, we're meeting.
The old people mention of black people literally climbing the walls to get to heaven. But that's how important their church was. That's how important their faith was.
I think there was something in the black religion that if Christ was going to come back to earth, he was going to do it on New Year's Eve, and they would have a celebration in connection with that.
And we have a great story that was written by a teenage girl around 1875, which describes the service in this very church. And one passionate member of the congregation stood up and shouted to Christ to come right down through the ceiling of this church, and he would pay for the shingles. By 1900, there were no people attending this church. As a result, the church became abandoned by the blacks.
When I looked at the history of why this church is still standing, it really was the council, and particularly in those days, they didn't call it the mayor, they called it the reeve, who really seemed to take on that responsibility to have leadership and make sure that this church was looked after.
The white community preserved the church and kept it preserved right up to now. About 100 years, the whites have looked after this church.
Well, it was never forgotten. That's a big misconception. People have been waiting for generations to see that church repaired and functional. When the vandals, the racist vandals, hit it with the trucks, the dump trucks, and took out the whole front of it, the community came together. The white community and the black community came together, and they repaired it. I can remember going by the church a few times as a child with my parents, but I never set foot inside the church till I was 50 years old. When the news broadcast occurred in 2013 that the church was in such dire straits and the roof was in danger of collapse, I immediately called Mayor Hughes, what's going on? And he asked me to come in on the steering committee to assist the township. The township was a little cautious. They didn't want to step on any toes. They didn't want to offend the African Canadian community, especially the descendants.
And we did an assessment on the building, and it was only when we got up in the attic that we saw how crucial and near to collapse this building was.
It's a wooden building. You know, it's not made of brick or stone, and wood is going to deteriorate.
That's sort of my complaint. Below this plate is the original foundation.
There was a roof leak as well.
Have a look at it.
Well, I think it's just remarkable that this building is here in this good a condition, and there's this much of it that survived. A lot of buildings, most buildings from this time period, no matter who owned them, would have long since been removed or destroyed.
Been there for a long time.
When it was designated as a National Historic Site, the African Canadian community were just thrilled because so many of our historical treasures have, you know, gone to dust. They are no more, and they're just a memory.
Because it was a National Historic Site, the amount of money that was going to take to restore it was a lot more than we normally would have anticipated. And when it got national attention, a lot of people really became interested in the church. A check for $500 from the Women's Institute is an indication of all the hard work that goes into this kind of stuff.
Everyone is just blown away by the fundraising, and they're committed to the project, and they're dedicated for everything that you're doing to help us.
Yeah, well, thank you too.
Because there's so much community interest in this, everybody has a different opinion, so it's really challenging to try and reconcile that and figure out, you know, what the right thing to do is for scope.
My phone was ringing off the hook. Well, why are they doing it that way? Or why are they doing it that way? Common sense is do it this way. But we couldn't because of the guidelines for a National Historic Site. And one of the biggest problems was we really didn't know what we were going to be facing until we actually got that church lifted and moved off the imprint.
So we're here today to lift this old girl up and move it off its original foundation so it can be all dug out and new foundation put in.
I guess the anticipation of it, is anything going to go wrong? Is it going to break apart? I had no idea.
Put this one on here for another safety right here. Okay.
Once this happens, this is a major milestone for the project. The rest of it can happen fairly quickly.
Right here, what we see here now is the old original stone down here at the bottom of the logs. It originally sat on 4 stones, what we're told, and about to lift the building off the stone at the moment here. Okay guys, you want to go lift it now? Thank you.
I went to the back where the old cemetery is, where the old people are buried, trying to get a good shot of the truck and the chain. When it first moved that first inch, I dropped. It was so slick. This little half-ton truck and a chain. When that church went back, we could see that those old boys were really smart. I'm just so full right now. I can't even express it.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to ARA tomorrow, and I think we know where it was found. So.
If the project had not been approached in the way it was, there's so much of the history that would never have been revealed. They had a piece of broken cup.
He had to cut into the chinking to get the strap through, and they found it in the chinking.
The painting is under the glaze.
Yeah.
That we know, and it's hand painted.
There's just so many issues. You know, they think that they would have one issue solved on the bottom level, but we couldn't do that because it affected the top level.
We've had funding challenges. We've tackled that. That was probably the initial hurdle. Then it was trying to figure out what we were going to do, who was going to do it, all of those pieces. That's now in place.
It was just worked together with all the team, and it was extensive.
And now we're really starting kind of the stage of implementation.
The challenge is trying to make it right, historically correct. When you have a building like this that so many people are aware of and the importance to all the descendants, there's just a lot more satisfaction.
We've sourced the right trades. That's again another thing that we've done for risk management. We want to make sure we got the right contractors involved because it is highly specialized.
It's been an interesting learning curve to look at all of the different elements and how they would have done it and what they had available in both resources, tools, and perhaps know-how at the time, and try and bring those elements into how we go about trying to bring this place back to life.
As we start to take things apart, we learn more about the story, so the scope then changes accordingly.
I stopped by one day and I saw the logs exposed. I just had to run my hands along the logs and look at them and feel them and think, many of my ancestors had hands on these logs.
It's amazing, you know, a little log church, you know, stacking logs one on top of the other. But those old boys were incredible.
You can see this here was done by an axe. See the axe marks? See the right there? They can see the round bit of the axe. So they actually cut down and cut in like this. This here was even end cut with an axe.
They compensated for the roll of the land by using different size logs. And all of this was done without modern machinery.
And 2 vehicles have hit this building and readjusted it, right?
Right.
Impact.
Nudging.
Yes.
If there was like probably 5 or 6 guys, I'd say 2 weeks they probably would have had the shell up. And then another week or 2, they were pretty efficient. They worked hard, you know, daylight to dark. And you got the trees probably were handy to here. They probably came off this field or there, you know.
But that's where you were. Like
yeah, that's where you were. That's what we should do. Like, we're not supposed to make it perfect. We're supposed to put it back the way it was.
We'll go back maybe 3 to.
That'd be nice.
That'd be a big help.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go back 3 to.
Yeah. Because even that log that was twisted over there, remember, he didn't want us to crack it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this happening and I'm saying, how privileged are you, Janie Cooper Wilson, to be here representing your ancestors when this is taking place. What a blessing.
This project's been extremely complex. There is an unmarked cemetery right behind me here. Some of the due diligence we've undertaken has been around archaeological work.
We're stripping off an area around the church and through the church to make sure that there are no grave shafts that are identifiable.
And so what have you found?
We actually haven't found anything, and that's what everybody wants. There's a buffer zone generally around the foundations of a church before a cemetery starts. So we did some testing outside the area, and one of our squares produced a small shoulder bone from a child.
We found a little clavicle of a child.
But how old do you think it would have been?
Less
Maybe
than two, maybe. Yeah. And it's like it comes from a rodent burrow.
Yeah.
It's not a grave. I'm pretty sure it's not from a grave. So we think that because the place that it was in was kind of all wiggly and things like that.
And then he said, well, you know, we're going to rebury the bone today. And I kind of took my breath away.
What we're going to do is put the bone back in the ground and just leave it and cover it over.
Would you permit me to say a little prayer for it?
Sure, of course.
Yeah. They had very carefully marked the spot where they found it. Oh, just a tiny one. Oh, poor little soul. I return this child to God, back to the earth, back to the ancestors. I am truly honored as a mother, as a grandmother, and a descendant to have this privilege today. Go in peace, rest in peace. May God bless you now and forever. Amen. I was very moved because I was the only descendant, the only mother, and the only grandma. People sensed the importance. They sensed how much it would mean to Canada. The respect that was shown not only for the site and the sanctity of the cemetery and the church, but the respect that they showed to me as a representative of the African Canadian community. I was just so touched.
Oh, I'm totally proud and honored, and got people coming by and thanking us, right? That's a good feeling. Needs more than a paycheck sometimes.
The amount of in-kind donations actually dwarf the amount of money that we raise, which people don't do that unless they know it's for a really worthwhile purpose.
Choirs from Uganda, they call themselves Neema Children's Choir. They're made up of children of all ages that were orphaned, basically abandoned by their family members because of disease and a lot of the politics that are going on in Uganda as well. They're here to really celebrate life and share their stories through African song and dance to really help us celebrate what the church is all about, what it signifies in terms of freedom and equality and hope. So we're so happy to have them here, and we had them perform outside at the church, which really meant a lot to us.
It is not into anger and never rule. We should reach the broken hearted. We should never, never give up. This is the life we've been called to, the love of Christ.
These kids, all they do is smile. They're just so full of life and wanting to share, and so grateful to God for their blessings, you know. I did explain to the children some of the African ancestry of the Loyalist blacks, including my own family. They were just absolutely blown away when they realized that they were standing on the graves and that this had actually been built from trees taken from this property in 1849. When those kids go home, they're going to tell their people there the silver link between the people here today, the people of color here today, and Africa. Every log that was structurally sound was reserved and reinstated into the building. The logs were interlocked into the foundation.
That's down. She's landed. She's back on the point. All right.
Happy?
Yeah, have your way.
they adjusted the ground level around it to make it look like it's exactly the way it was. It was an optical illusion. You can't see any part of the foundation.
All right. 2, 3.
I don't think I really became nervous until about 3 weeks before the church reopened. Really nervous.
The registration tent is over there.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure you get your...
Yeah, you'll get one of those over there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm your cousin Janie.
Oh, pleased to meet you, Janie.
Okay, we got to get you with a name tag.
Okay.
Okay, so could you kind of help me out?
Hi, how are ya? Good to see you again.
Well, honey, if you don't know your love today, I don't know what's going to take.
You are so adored.
You're home now. You're home. The Right Reverend Chester Searles is the General Superintendent of the BME Church in Canada.
Hey, my dear.
Oh!
God bless you.
That was very moving and very beautiful. And of course, we locked arms in the procession because it was a civil rights movement for us. When these kids started to dance, it gave people a way to see the beauty of these children, the beauty of the culture, and how they took praise and combined it with their dance. I was just gone. I was just into the music of my ancestors. And to have them at the grand opening was just incredible. I ended up dancing with Reverend Searles. So funny.
We turned the clock back almost 170 years to restore a humble church because of what it represents, and that is the very fabric of Canada as a nation.
And thank you for your presence here today. This is not phony. This is my heart speaking. Those we honor today fought to survive. They dared to dream, and their dream is still alive. Thanks to all of you. I love you. There's many descendants in the service today. That was very moving and very beautiful.
3, 2, 1. You ready?
I was just so proud to be a descendant that day. It doesn't matter that it's a historical site. It doesn't matter that the township owns it. That is a house of God. Reverend Searles is the head of the BME Church in Canada. He is the one rededicating that church, re-sanctifying it.
In remembrance of all those who have gone before us and those who have sacrificed to make the completion of this building a reality, that it may be to all people a house of prayer, a haven of comfort, a community of fellowship, and a gate to heaven, we rededicate this house of our Lord. We are all blessed. Now we must bless others. God bless you.
Amen. Amen.
Very moving that once again the community was brought back together to let the outside world know that we did care. People say, oh, Oro was not a part of the Underground Railroad. Well, the key to the Underground Railroad was it was secret.
I had heard that we were part of the Underground Railroad movement, but I had no evidence of it, and today I'm seeing evidence, which is more than exciting and overwhelming.
It was a perfect spot. The first blacks there were soldiers. The border towns were hot. There were relatives in all these little settlements. If a relative was on the run and he or she was being hunted, they just keep moving them.
The feeling that you get being here, you know, the struggle that they went through, the Underground Railroad to come to Canada here, you know, and to be here, it's just wonderful.
Very significant for the children that are coming up now. Yes. To be taught that their ancestors contributed immensely to the community.
This is beautiful, and I wish my grandfather could see it now.
You know, you can see a picture, and a picture speaks 1,000 words, but when you actually stand in the center of that church and touch those logs, there's something just goes right to your soul.
I will come here as long as I live to make sure that it's being taken care of properly and our ancestors who are buried here are treated with respect.
And one of the things that many of the descendants said, they didn't want the church changed to the point that they couldn't recognize it anymore. Because when they see the church, it's that tunnel through the void of years where they can reach back and touch their ancestors, the spirit of their ancestors.
What can I say? It brings back so many memories of my family. You know, no words can even come near what people have done for this church. And I'm so proud.
After you see what happened today, what took place, and the appreciation of everybody who was here, it makes all the work that went into this really worthwhile.
I got to meet a few of the descendants of Noah Morris, and as a descendant, I'm just overwhelmed and thrilled. Janie did an amazing job of all the family trees, and there was a number of people who were just amazed, you know, that's mine, you know, and that's mine. So it was really nice to see that, you know, they could visually see where their family fit into the whole picture.
There are no words to express how diligent and how heartfelt and how caring her work is. You can see the evidence of it here. It's beyond anything anyone could hope for.
To be a part of this and to have the Canadians recreate this history that's near and dear to them is also near and dear to us coming from the States.
People came from Virginia, from Alberta, from British Columbia, the East Coast, relatives that we knew were out there.
Thompsons are commemorated on the monument that you see next to the church, so that's why I'm here. I am a descendant of George Wallace Thompson. I found my mother, I found my grandmother, I found my great-grandmother and grandfather, and I found out things that I had no idea about. There's your mom, Susie Leanna.
There was a lot of family there that I hadn't seen in years, and many that I never met.
My grandmother is Grandmother Pearl Morris. My mother was born here in Canada. I'm from Detroit.
It's sort of risen again from the dust, and it's fresh and new yet old, fresh yet distinguished. It really is a remarkable restoration and conservation project.
We wanted it to be a church. It needs to be a functional church that is a place of being able to come and have services, whatever they are, and have events.
Who knows? My own granddaughter, if she decides to tie the knot someday, may want to be married in the church of her ancestors.
We have a tendency to, if it's old, you tear it down, you get rid of it. It's in the way. We want to build condos on it, you know, and I'm so pleased that Oro-Medonte is protecting this church.
We are very fortunate that the County of Simcoe has seen this important lake, so they're going to work as an outreach from the museum in order to ensure that we have interpreters here who can meet visitors, particularly on the weekend, and be able to answer their questions, show them around, and hopefully keep the story going.
All I'm asking is that the warmth and the love that's in that church be allowed to grow and teach.